Hello, welcome to today's God Thought. My name's Matt and I want to talk to you about being part of a church family and what that means to me. So growing up, I always went to church right from when I was a baby. I was raised in a church, my family went to church, and so it was just a default that I would go to church with them. Now, looking back, I realised that it was actually just a default and I wasn't going on my own volition, I was going because of my parents. And this really became apparent to me when I went to university and I left home. So when I went to university, I felt like, okay, I need to find a church for myself. I've moved away from home, I've gone to church my whole life, so I better now find another church to go to whilst I'm at university. And that was really, really hard for me. And I think it's because I had no family in Bath where I went to church, moving from Kent. And I had no friends in a church. And all of these things were just defaults that were put in place throughout my childhood as I was growing up. And they were actually ultimately the reason I went to church. I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, now I know. And that's because when I went to university, I really struggled to find a church that I fit into. It had to be all about just me and how I fit into that church, not to do with me seeing my family there or me blending in with a group of friends who are already at church. I had to set out on my own, and that was really hard. And to be honest, throughout the whole of university, for my 4 years in Bath, I never did fit into a church. I could never find somewhere to settle. So after uni, I married my wife Tash and we moved to Ashford. And we thought, Tash also being raised in a church, we both thought, okay, we need to find a church in Ashford that we're going to settle in now that we've moved home and we're starting our lives together. But again, we both really struggled with that. We tried lots of different churches out, but there was nowhere that we really felt like we fit in and that was the right place for us. Don't get me wrong, all these churches were very, very nice. They were lovely people and we felt so welcome. We really enjoyed our experience at that church. But we'd walk away from there and we would never have a compelling feeling to go back to that church the following Sunday. Or we'd never have a compelling feeling to get involved in any small groups or serve in any way in that church. And that was hard for us because we both knew that that was what we ultimately wanted, and we wanted that feeling of being motivated to be a part of a church and to serve God through a church. So this went on for a few years where we just simply couldn't settle somewhere. We couldn't find anywhere that we felt like we were meant to be. And then one day we came to WBC. We thought we'd try a new church out. And again, it was a lovely church. We felt very welcomed by everybody, much like we had at every other church we'd gone to. And we walked away from WBC feeling a real compelling reason to go back again the following week. There was something just so different about WBC, and it wasn't something that you can say, oh, the worship was better, or oh, there were nicer people, because actually that wasn't the case. It wasn't tangible and we couldn't put our finger on what it was. And I can only say that it was God telling us that this is where we are meant to be. This was his plan for us. All along, we were supposed to be at WBC. And we've never looked back since that day. We now really feel at home and we are so happy that we have found the right place for us. So that's my God thought for today. Sometimes I think God sends us on this journey and it can be a long, winding, often very difficult journey, and we don't know where we're going to end that journey. But he sends us on that journey so that when we do end up at the final place, we are all the more wiser for it, and we know that that's where we're meant to be. We know that by comparing where we are now to where we have been before, and we know now how great we feel and how right it feels to be at this final place, for us to be at WBC as opposed to any other church. That was the confidence we had to know that, okay, this is the right place and this is where we're supposed to be. So if you feel like God is sending you on that kind of journey right now, please have faith that this is in God's control and this is part of his plan for you. and that when you do end up at the end of that journey, you'll be able to look back and see why you had to go on that journey, so that where you end up, you know that that's the right place and that's where you're meant to be. Thank you very much for listening. God bless you.